I was browsing Facebook one night like I commonly did. I usually would just look at things friends posted, news, and things of that nature. Occasionally, I would browse through Facebook Marketplace to see if I could find any good deals on anything. I'm the type of person that always tries to take advantage of a good deal. I came across an ad for an iPad that seemed to be in pretty good condition. I didn't really need one, but the price was unbeatable. According to the description of the post, there was nothing wrong with it, and there was even a video of someone turning it off and on to prove that it worked. The ad had just been posted like 10 minutes ago, and I knew that it would go fast. I messaged the seller, and they ended up getting back to me pretty quickly. We set up a time to meet the next day for me to come by and pick it up. We agreed to meet at about 8 p.m. The seller said they couldn't do it during the day because of work. I was okay with that, since I had to work myself. They gave me their address, and everything was set up. The person's house was about 15 minutes away. The neighborhood seemed pretty average. Some of the houses seemed kinda far apart. They weren't right next to each other, so most of the houses had a pretty decent property size. I parked at the front of the driveway, and went up to the front door. I texted the seller one more time beforehand to confirm, and everything seemed to be good. I rang the doorbell and waited. A man answered the door and greeted me. He shook my hand and told me to come in. The house was moderate in size, nothing too crazy. He told me to follow him and that the iPad was in the kitchen. I was kinda uncomfortable being in a stranger's house, especially someone I had met online. I went along with it though, and followed him into the kitchen. There was in fact an iPad sitting on the kitchen table, but it was not the one from the pictures from Facebook. It looked extremely old and the screen was completely shattered, to the point that the iPad was basically unusable. I asked him where the one from the pictures was, and he explained that this just happened recently, and that he was willing to lower the price for me because of it. I wasn't too happy with that though. I was looking for one that would actually be functional. I made up something about needing to ask someone else about it, because it was meant to be a gift, and I could come back at a later date if needed. This was a lie, obviously, but I didn't want to sound mean or rude, but I was just looking for a way to get out of it. He seemed to buy it, and I took a few pictures of the iPad to quote-unquote show them to the person it was for. I told him we'd keep in touch, and I walked out and back to my car. I started it up and began making my way down the road. The car was jolting around and making this weird scraping type noise. It was so bad that I could barely even steer the car. I stopped on a neighborhood road and got out. I took one look at my car and realized my front driver's side tire was completely flat. I took an even closer look and realized something even more disturbing. They had been slashed. In fact, all 4 of my tires had been completely slashed. I felt as if I was being watched now. I knew something bad would happen if I stuck around, so I got back into my car and just tried to keep moving. I drove super slow and barely made it out of the neighborhood and up the road to a grocery store parking lot, all while hearing my rims being destroyed on the pavement. I called a friend and had him pick me up. I had my car towed and fixed the next day. I think it's obvious that while I was inside that guy's house talking about the iPad, someone had slashed my tires outside. I don't know what the plan was. I'm just glad I didn't stick around to find out. A buddy of mine recently landed a new job, and subsequently bought a new house. He was in the process of furnishing it. He already had things like a TV and some dressers, but I knew that he had been looking for a couch for a while. He hit me up one day, and told me he found a good deal on one on Facebook Marketplace, and was asking for my help in going to get it. I had the day off work, so I agreed. I also have a pickup truck, so it would be easier to use that to transport the couch instead of my friend's car. I met at his place, picked him up, and we put the address to this person's house into the GPS. It was a 25-minute drive and on the completely other side of town. I didn't mind too much though. My buddy told me that the guy selling the couch was supposedly Timothy, and that the price was too good to pass up. We showed up to the address and immediately noticed this wasn't exactly the nicest area of town. We got out and walked to the front door together. It was slightly cracked open, but my friend still knocked on the door. Someone shouted "Come in" from inside, and my friend stepped in. I followed close behind him. We were basically in a hallway next to a living room. The house was small, and the room was extremely dirty. There was clothes and stuff all over the floor and couch. I was hoping that wasn't the couch my friend was planning on buying. We stood in there for about 2 minutes. Then someone walked from the back and greeted us. He introduced himself as Timothy. He seemed nice enough, I guess, although a bit socially awkward. He asked my friend why he had brought someone else with him. He told him that I was there to help move the couch, and that we were using my truck. The way he asked the question sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Something about his tone just gave off really creepy vibes. Eventually, the conversation shifted to the couch, and figuring out where it actually was. Timothy said that it was downstairs in the basement, and that he would help us carry it upstairs if we wanted. He opened a door in the hallway, and it led down into a basement. I took a look down there, and it was completely pitch black. I was starting to get a bad feeling. There's no way I was going into a dark basement in some stranger's house. Timothy urged us to take the first steps down, but there was hesitation from both of us. I looked at my friend subtly. I could tell he didn't like this either. We asked if we could turn on the lights down there, but Timothy responded by saying that they didn't work. My friend reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and said 1 second, as he appeared to have gotten a phone call from someone. He talked for about a minute and said that we had to leave. He said that his brother had broken his arm at football practice, and that he had to meet him at the ER. Timothy didn't say anything as we walked out of the house and back to my truck. I sped out of there and asked my friend which hospital to go to, and he said it was all a lie. There was no phone call. He told me that just barely at the bottom of the basement stairs, he could see someone standing down there, seemingly waiting for us. He made the whole broken arm thing up just as an excuse to leave. I'm so glad that he was able to come up with something that smart in the moment. It was clear that the whole thing was a setup of some kind. There probably wasn't even a couch down there. Both of us were fortunately thinking clearly, and the phone call idea for my friend potentially saved both of our lives. I used to have an old cabinet that belonged to a family member. Somehow, it ended up in my house, but we never used it. It was just taking up space, and I didn't want to deal with it anymore. The family member it belonged to didn't want it either, so I decided to just sell it. I put up an ad on Facebook Marketplace, in hopes I could just get rid of it. It was by no means brand new, but it was still in decent condition. I spent some time cleaning it up and fixing a couple broken shelves to increase its value a little bit. I honestly didn't care about the money that much. I just wanted it gone more than anything. The price I set for it was definitely on the lower end, so I expected to have it out of here within a couple of days. I got a few responses pretty quickly about it, but most of those ended up falling through for one reason or another. I got a message from someone who said he was interested in it, and was wondering if he could come by and see it before committing to buying it. I was okay with that. Plus, since COVID, I've been working from home, so it wouldn't really be a problem. We set up a time and got everything planned out. I texted the guy shortly before he was supposed to arrive to confirm that he was still coming, and he said he was on his way. Not long later, someone rang the doorbell. I opened the door and was greeted by a man, probably in his late 50s, with a long gray beard. He was wearing a brownish jacket and jeans. He said he was here for the cabinet, and I invited him inside. The cabinet was sitting in the dining room, pretty much right by the front door. I showed it to him and pretty much told him that I just wanted it gone. He was doing a pretty thorough inspection on it, seemingly looking at every possible scratch. I don't really know how to explain it, but it was a little weird. As long as he took it off my hands, I didn't really care. I was in the room with this guy, answering his occasional questions, and just watching him do his inspection. My son yelled out to me from upstairs. I told the man I'd be right back, and that I needed to go see what my son wanted. I was up there for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I returned to the dining room, and the man was gone. There was a piece of paper sitting on my table. There was writing on it as well. It said, "Sorry, I had to get going. We will keep in touch." I looked out my window, and there was no car in the street or driveway. So maybe he had just left. I wasn't even gone for that long, but it was whatever. It was frustrating that I still had this cabinet, but I knew eventually someone would take it. I got no more serious offers for the rest of the day, so I was stuck with it for at least another night. It was nighttime by now, and at this point, everyone was in their rooms preparing to go to sleep. I was actually asleep by this point, but I woke up instantly to my 12-year-old daughter screaming. I jumped out of bed and basically kicked open the door. My daughter was standing in the corner shaking. She pointed at her bed, unable to get any words across. I don't know what I was thinking in that moment, but I got on my knees and took a peek under the bed. There was a full-grown man hiding under there. I recognized him. It was the guy who came by to look at the cabinet earlier. Apparently, he never left my house at all. I told my daughter to get out and go to her mom while I stayed and called the police. The man didn't resist at all. He just climbed out from under the bed and waited. It took the police about 5 minutes, and my wife let them in. The man was cuffed, and I had to give them the full story. I'm not exactly sure what happened to the guy, but I do know this event was very emotionally scarring for my daughter. This wasn't too long ago either, only a few months, and we are still working through some things. I got rid of the cabinet eventually, and have since stopped using Facebook Marketplace. If I ever do use it again, I won't be inviting anyone over to my house. It will be strictly public places only. I was looking for a used car on Facebook Marketplace for my daughter. It would be her first car, so I wasn't looking to get anything super nice. I found a couple good deals and sent messages to the sellers. Most people never responded, and a couple wrote me back saying the cars had already been sold. I got a response from a guy named Bill, and he said he could meet me somewhere to get the car. It sounded good to me, and we ended up deciding to meet at a Walmart that was about halfway between both of our locations. I couldn't get out of work till 5 p.m., so we had to meet up after. I brought my wife with me just in case we did purchase the car, so that someone could drive it back to our house. It was about a 45-minute drive to the Walmart where we were supposed to meet. We showed up on time and pulled into a parking spot in the middle of the lot. I texted Bill and told him that we were here. He responded rather quickly and said that he'd be there shortly. We waited for about 20 minutes with no indication that he was here yet. This was in winter as well, so it was already dark out. Another 20 minutes went by, and finally I got a text from Bill saying that he was here. He said he was parked in the back corner of the parking lot, over to the left of the store. I pulled out of my parking spot and began circling the lot. Sure enough, in the area where he said he was, I saw the car. It appeared to be in the same condition as the pictures, so I was happy about that. My wife was concerned with the fact that they were parked in an area with no lights at all. It was a red flag looking back on it now, but at the time I was full tunnel vision on getting this car at a good price. I backed into a parking spot next to the car. I expected to see Bill sitting in the driver's seat, but I was surprised to see no one. The car was empty. I was texting Bill. assuming that it was possible he had ran into Walmart real quick. I was looking into my driver's side mirror for whatever reason, and saw someone standing basically right at my rear taillight. The sight of him made me jump slightly as I wasn't expecting to see anyone. I looked into my rearview mirror now, and saw 2 more men emerging from the bushes behind my car that lined the back of the parking lot. They were basically at the back of my car, and one of them had something in his hand. It looked like a bat or some sort of metal rod. It was kinda hard to tell. I shifted into drive and sped out of the parking lot and back onto the highway. My wife was confused. She didn't see them because she was looking down at her phone at the time. I told her what I saw, and we just went back home. I made sure that I wasn't followed. I checked the ad on Facebook Marketplace when I got back home, and it was deleted. I also noticed that Bill, if that's even his real name, had blocked my number over text. I basically never use Facebook Marketplace or any sites like that anymore. If your gut tells you that something seems too sketchy or too good to be true, listen to your gut. In pretty much every scenario, your gut will always be correct.